Well, hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the White Knuckle Podcast, powered by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to the White Knuckle Podcast. Today, I am solo. I have joined with me on the other line a new team member for White Knuckle Productions. That team member is Donnie Monroe. Donnie, how's it going tonight?
Oh, it's going really good. Enjoying this cooler weather that we have in August for this year. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful night up here in Wisconsin, and it's nice down in Kansas, I assume?
Yeah, it's 2 weeks ago, it was, 100 degrees, 105 degrees, so this stuff is amazing.
Yeah, right on. So, Donnie, you don't currently have a pro shop, and when I say pro shop, I mean an archery shop, but you've got some experience in the pro shop business, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk to you today, and that's just to sort of talk about what is often overlooked, in my opinion, and that's bow maintenance prior to the season. I mean, we all talk about tactics, and that's all great, and that's certainly relevant. But when it comes down to that moment of truth, it's important that your gear's ready to go. So I wanted to tap into your knowledge of the bow world itself, archery itself, and just sort of get your 2 cents on how to determine when your bow needs maintenance and how to determine exactly what it is that you should do, prior to season. So if you could just sort of go through maybe what you would recommend in terms of maintenance and what you think needs to be done prior to the season.
Okay. Yeah, I owned an archery shop for over 20 years. So I've been doing this for a long time. Plus, I still do it for friends and family, and quality is number one, not quantity. And that kind of goes into the maintenance of your bow. First of all, when you first get your bow, you really want to take it to somebody that's credible, a dealer that, they don't have to necessarily be the biggest, but you need somebody that does a very good job. And what I'd recommend before you even start the year and start shooting and practicing is actually taking the bow to a dealer and, have them look it over. Check everything over, get the cans in time, whatever arrow you're shooting, you make sure that you actually shoot it through paper, that it's tuned properly. Make sure that all your accessories are tightened, have them look over everything. And another key thing is the string. If you have cheap strings, you're going to deal with constant changing in arrow flight, peak rotation, a lot of that stuff. And so it's always a good idea to keep new strings on it, at least every couple of years. And it kind of depends on how much you shoot and how well you take care of it. So the very first thing I would do is take it to a shop, let them go over everything, and make sure that it not only is timed and tuned, but also that it fits you properly and that it's comfortable. And then once you have that done, the next thing that I would recommend is once you get out and actually start shooting it, make sure that you keep it, the string waxed. If you get it wet, make sure you wipe off the excess water before you put it up. Another thing is, keeping it in a cool, dry place. Don't leave it out in a vehicle. We've had a lot of customers that, leave it out in the vehicle over work, and then they bring it in and it'd be in pieces and the string broke, and then you've got limbs and cans and everything to deal with. So that's another big thing. But, a lot of it depends upon the usage as far as what do you do? If you shoot a lot, you may want to change your strings every year. If you shoot, 300 arrows in a week, you may want to change them out even sooner. It just depends on how much you do, but you definitely want to keep up, looking at your bolts, checking them tight occasionally, making sure you don't have any rattles or any issues there. And then keeping, like your strings waxed, because that'll prolong the life of the string and keep you shooting well. And I can't stress enough the quality of the strings. Quality there's a lot of manufacturers out there that are making really, really good strings right now, but spend the extra money on a good set, because that's a huge thing, especially when you start getting confidence and everything starts shooting well. You don't want your strings changing. So those are some of the highlights.
You mentioned the string. I noticed that last year when I got my Elite sent to me, I didn't shoot it until I got some Vapor Trail strings on it, and I noticed that I had a whole lot less problems with peep alignment with the Vapor Trail string than I did with what I had on my old bow. That's not to say I don't know what it would have been like with the string that came on its stock. I believe they're winner's choice from Elite. But I can definitely say that it made a difference to put a string on that was quality and new. And maybe it's just because the Elite bow that I had was, I don't know how many years old, but it was older. So you sounds to me like you're starting with a string.
Yeah, I mean, you can have everything else tight. You can have it fit you perfect. It can be comfortable. Everything's just right. You can have it perfectly tuned. But if that thing starts to stretch, it can throw it out of tune. You can start having issues with flight. You can have issues where your peep starts rotating. All those things that you don't want to deal with as you get closer to hunting season. So you need to take the extra time and get that taken care of out of the gate and spend the extra money and get a good quality set. Now, both those you mentioned, Winner's Choice, Vapor Trail, both of those are quality. I don't know this for sure, but I believe Elite over the years maybe tried a couple different string manufacturers, so I'm not sure what you had. And, even some of the manufacturers have changed hands, but I know the two that you mentioned they both can make good quality strings. And there's several others out there. I've got a friend back in Indiana that's all he does now is make strings, and he's really good at it. So there's some good ones out there, but you need to pay a little bit more and get one that's actually quality and that's, that takes some time building, so you don't have those issues. Good quality material, good quality craftsmanship.
You mentioned fit a couple different times, and you said you want it to fit perfect. What does fit perfect mean to those of us who just assume that we're going to pull it out of the case and I got a 30-inch draw because that's what I've always had, and it's going to shoot straight and do what it is that I expect it to do?
Well, sometimes, you may be shooting a certain way that, you've been that way for years, so it feels comfortable to you. And you might think it's not a big deal. But if you go to somebody, a pro shop, or have a pro shooter that knows what they're doing, that can help you with that stuff and help adjust your draw length, you can really tweak that in. And basically, to make it simple, for you to kind of understand it, you don't want to feel a lot of pressure. If you're a right-handed shooter in your left shoulder, you don't want to, I try to recommend when I'm shooting, it's more of a bone-to-bone structure, so you eliminate a lot of muscle. So that helps you hold better. It's steadier on the target. And you can hold for a lot longer time. I mean, you don't know, you may have to draw on a buck early. So if you got to hold it for a while, it's important to to keep your muscles from fatiguing. Well, if you don't have a lot of pressure, and you have a bone-to-bone structure there, when you draw back, you should have a very comfortable feel where it locks in, not a lot of pressure. You don't feel like you're squeezed. You know what I mean? And then when you're actually at full draw, if it's too long, you don't, a lot of times somebody will shoot a little bit too long, and then if they relax in the shot, the bow wants to creep forward, which then, can cause some premature firing and the other issues, or it can build anxiety. So you really want a bow that when you draw it back, you don't feel a lot of pressure in your arms. It feels really comfortable, and the bow doesn't creep forward on you.
And when you say, when you say creep forward, you mean as you're trying to steady that sight on its intended target, your draw or your cams essentially are coming forward.
That's correct.
A tiny bit. Okay. All right.
Yeah. And so a lot of times, that can cause you, especially if let's say you're at full draw and your finger's actually on the trigger and you're getting ready to start your squeezing process and you're on target, but you're just kind of really relaxed and settling in. And then all of a sudden, you're not expecting it, but the cams pull forward and jerk you, and you punch the trigger. I'm sure if you bow hunted long enough, everybody's experienced that unexpected shot, Or you're at full draw.
You can watch my web show from 2 years ago.
Yeah. But there's two things about that. One is the draw length being adjusted perfectly. The other thing is, from my perspective for hunting, you want a good valley that has good let off to where, that'll set in there, and you can really relax, which will help you, be real steady also.
Well, we've all heard terms like, draw length and draw weight and feet per second and honestly, I know what some of them mean, but I don't know what they all mean together. And maybe this is getting a little bit off topic, but as long as I've got you, I'll ask you, how is it that when you found the right draw length, the right draw weight, and obviously that's going to determine the feet per second. But is it just simply, okay, I can hold this for 2 minutes comfortably? What all, in your opinion, if I walk into your pro shop, or if you were gonna, tutor me in this, what would you say are the criteria that you judge the perfect draw length weight by?
Well, part of it is when you start talking about draw weight is when you want to be able to, obviously everybody wants to pull plenty of weight because you want to have enough energy to drive that arrow through that animal. But there becomes a problem when you're pulling too much, and I'm sure there's probably a lot of people out there listening that have had the problem to where they go to draw and they can't draw, or they struggle drawing, or, when they draw, they've got to point to the sky to get that thing back. And when you do that, it basically creates your mind at ease. And when that happens, then that helps kind of generate what we call target panic. And that creates a lot of bad habits. And then, you can actually start to where you make bad shots. You can shoot before you're even really aiming at the deer. So draw weight really should be comfortable. It should be what you can handle, what you can draw back smoothly. It's okay to have some weight, but it shouldn't hurt, and you shouldn't have to pull really high. I try to recommend to my customers that they, slightly aim above the target, or hold the bow slightly above the target that you anticipate shooting, and then start to draw back. And you should be able to pretty much draw straight back comfortably. And then once you settle in, you actually use, if that's comfortable and you can do that, you should pretty much be able to stay pretty close on target, and then you just let gravity kind of help draft you down or drift you down into in the target. So you're using less muscles. So it's just another way of being accurate. Draw length, again, is when you can do that, you can draw that weight and come back. Basically, your front arm should be, if you put it to your side and you're right-handed shooter and your left hand, your left arm, and you put it to your side and you just raise it up. And basically, if somebody pressed on the palm of your hand where that one of your bones would come out right there, that's where you want that pressure, and you want that arm just kind of low locked, not hyperextended, not your elbow really bent. I mean, yeah, you can, archery is all about consistency. So if you can shoot whatever way, consistent every time, more power to you, and you can, you can hit. If you're consistent, you can hit consistently and accurately. But preferably, if you can reduce the muscles, or you can make that your arm out there almost like a 2x4, to where you don't have muscles that are getting in the way, and you can slow your oscillation so you aim better. That's the way you want it. And then as you draw back comfortably, getting your anchor, and that'll vary depending on what type of release or, what you're using, whether it's a handheld or a wrist strap. But if you can get that where that's consistent, a spot, by your jawbone, underneath your earlobe, there's different places. But if you can get that and where your arms feel nice and relaxed and can kind of just settle in, and you don't feel cramped or you're not hyperextended to the point where it starts creeping, then that's basically where your draw length is. So in a perfect scenario, you'd be able to aim slightly above the target, draw straight back, anchor, feels comfortable, and you could hold that for a long time and be comfortable, and your arms don't really start shaking. And that is really a key that's going to help you down the road in archery. It's going to help you with, aiming. It's going to help you with confidence. It'll reduce any target panic. So in the end, it'll help you become a better bow hunter.
Okay, well, that sounds fair.
And sometimes if it's hard, I understand, talking about this, it might not be, super easy to grasp what I'm saying. And some people might maybe not be able to figure it out just on their own. That's why I would recommend trying to find out, if you don't know a great pro shop, do some research and find out who really knows their stuff in your area. And go to that person. And even if you have to pay for some lessons or whatever, because draw length is very, very critical. And when you start talking to professional archers, I mean, a quarter of an inch, an eighth of an inch on draw length can make a huge difference. And I know that probably sounds crazy to a lot of bow hunters, but when you get accurate and you get at that professional level, that's really where they go with it.
Okay. So when you say go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, so you really want to make sure the bow fits you, because that'll help you with a lot of other flaws.
Okay. So, and maybe I already asked this, and I think I did because I wrote it down, but how do I know when the bow fits me, when you can fulfill all the criteria that you said earlier, right? Which is the draw and all that stuff. What happens if you feel like you've got all that, you've gone to a pro shop and you're still not shooting the way you want to? Is there any common misconceptions that are out there, or common mistakes that people make? When I say misconceptions, I mean they're thinking that they should be doing things a certain way, and they're not. They're not.
Yeah, there's probably one of the biggest is the fact that, and a lot of times those guys will switch gear to gear to gear to gear, looking for that magic pill that's going to take care of everything. And a lot of times that's not the case. One of probably the toughest things to talk about that I saw pretty much every day that I had my bow shop open for 20 years, was somebody would come through that door and, they would have target panic. As a matter of fact, I think everybody has a little bit of target panic, which is basically fear of missing the shot. And different things elevate that. Obviously, a 150-inch 10-point stand in front of you is going to make your heart go fast. You're going to be really anxious about that and trying to get everything perfect to make a great shot. A target that's just a little target face, or a block target or whatever, that's 10 foot in front of you, you can probably handle that a lot better. But if I take that, even that same block target and put it out there at 50 yards, you're going to have a lot harder just relaxing and making a good shot. So target panic is one of the key things. And target panic, a lot of people don't want to admit to it. A lot of people do not want to talk about that. But what you'll find is, you're talking about archery and being accurate, one of the key features, because you can only think of one thing consciously at a time. And we're talking about whether you're a sniper shooting a rifle or, shooting an elk at 70 yards with a bow, or a seated target, out there. You want to be focused on aiming. Well, if you're worried about everything else or your mind's wandering, it's hard to do that. And target panic will cause a lot of issues. And I'm sure you've seen those guys that they draw back their bow and they can't even get on the target, and their finger's not even touching the trigger. And all of a sudden they bring it up and just swipe that sucker. You know what I mean? That's just, they're not squeezing through the shot, it's purely just punching the trigger. And you're not aiming if you're doing that. You need to be able to squeeze through the shot. And there's some techniques to help you keep from doing that. And, even me personally, I've had, over the past, I used to shoot a lot and used to shoot ASAs, IBOs, indoor spot shooting, and then obviously hunting. Well, I've had my ups and downs as far as having the issues of target panic. And one thing that I do that helps me kind of get rid of that is I'll actually what they call blank bell shooting, and I'll get up close to a target before I even start for the day or even start for the year. And once I get it all tuned and get everything ready, and what I mean by blank bell is just a target with no dots, or I'm not paying attention, or I'll just draw back, make sure I'm on target, and I'll close my eyes. And I'll focus nothing on but just squeezing the trigger. And I'll do that quite a bit. Or I'll use what's called back tension. That's a whole other thing. But what that does is that trains my body to when I say, okay, I want to initiate a shot, to start squeezing through the shot, then if I do that enough, it becomes subconscious, kind of like if you're eating off your plate, you don't have to guide your fork to your mouth. You've done it enough that it's subconsciously done now. So you want to practice that, and that will become second nature, and it'll help you relax your mind, and then you can start focusing on aiming. But if you can't control that shot and can't squeeze, can't control how your mind is, you're always going to have issues with aiming, and it's going to be tough to be accurate all the time.
So would it be fair to say then, and I know we're getting a little bit technical, but why not? It's getting close to season, and it's not too late to start making sure you're doing the right things. But would it be fair to say that, much like shooting a basketball or swinging a bat, catching a football, whatever the case may be, it's the repetition and that muscle memory that really makes the most difference?
I would say that it is part of that, and I would say the other part is going to be probably the hardest thing to deal with is actually the mental aspect of it. I mean, it's a combination. You want to be able to have that where it's secondary, but you got to get your mind under control so you can relax. Because you can shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be aiming, and that's not going to mean that you can relax your mind. So it's a combination of both. Both are very critical as far as if you really want to be consistent with archery.
So I'm the guy that has trouble keeping the pin on the dot, which is really most of the game, I guess. That's a critical part of the equation. What kind of advice, short of me driving down to Kansas and having you coach me, what kind of advice, not having watched my shot, would you give somebody, or wouldn't you give someone advice because you just haven't seen them shoot? Is it hard to say?
Well, I would love for you to come down to be able to help you with that, because
I can be there like November 1st.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm very passionate about helping people become better at shooting, because there's nothing worse than loving archery and loving bow hunting and having that awful thing called target panic, on your back. I mean, it's a heavy monkey. And what you're describing is a form of it. It's just how you control it. So it's a form of target panic. And there's what I would recommend for you right now, since I'm not there, a couple quick things. One is go outside, put a target up, and get 10 or 15 foot away from it. Don't step back. And draw your bow back, and then make sure your pin's on there. And then just concentrate on slowly squeezing the shot with your eyes closed. Just making sure you're on target so you're not going to lose an arrow. Just do that, and do that quite a bit. And then once you feel like you're doing that and you're really squeezing through the shot, not rushing it, not punching it, then I would recommend that you draw the bow back. Now this time with your eyes open. You pick a spot and let your pin get there and just let it float. Now here's the deal though. You're keeping your finger behind the trigger. You're not going to shoot. And what that does is it helps train your mind to relax and actually truly aim, and that it's okay for your pin to settle on the exact target that you're wanting to shoot. If you can do those two things, and I don't need you to shoot at 40 yards. Once I teach you the basics and once I get you where you're relaxed, we'll get that. I don't care if it's a week before season. I want you to focus on up close. I want you to focus on getting comfortable with your bow and comfortable with shooting and comfortable with aiming. Those are the two biggest things. Drawing back, shooting with your eyes closed, not picking a spot, just making sure you're on target, just squeezing, concentrate, just think to yourself, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. And then the other is, once you can do that quite a bit, then drawing back, picking a spot, keeping your finger behind the trigger, you're not going to shoot it, and just aim, aim, aim. Let that pen just bury right. Pick a little bitty spot and let it just bury there, and then just let the bow down. Those two things right there alone will help you tremendously, because it will help your mind relax.
Okay. As I listen to you talk about it, it sounds like target panic really could be better described, because you think of panic and you think, oh my God, I'm freaking out. And certainly that probably is part of it at times, but it sounds like target panic could be called an aiming problem. And it sounds like, it could be, a problem that manifests itself in different ways for all different kinds of shooters. But the things that you described doing, as I'm thinking about it, should correct most of that, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it will definitely help that. And if you're having a hard time getting there on your own, then I would seek some help and getting somebody to help train you, and they can give you some more tips. But those couple things can definitely help tremendously. And it is an aiming issue. But it's also if you've punched the trigger for 20 years, it's hard to change that unless you consciously think about that. So it kind of works hand in hand.
Right. Shot execution is certainly where it's at, and it could be a big problem if you're not, going through the proper motions. I guess I never really thought of.
I mean, if you're not picking a spot on an animal, let's face it, even you do all the practicing, you try to do everything right, because unless you're just a man of steel or a woman of steel, when it comes, your heart's going to be excited. You're going to be pumped up. So all that practice that you do ahead of time and all the controlled stuff that you do will help you do the best you can do as far as getting that pin where it needs to be. And they talk about picking a spot on the animal. You want to try to find a spot and pick it and get your pin there before you start to squeeze. And all that's, that early training and, getting everything right kind of leads up to helping us make that perfect shot. And that's really what it's all about.
Well, I'm gonna switch things up, and thanks for that. I guess it puts a lot more into perspective as I'm thinking about it as you're talking about it. I think that I can see we're closing your eyes. Certainly, you want to have a big enough target to shoot at, and obviously do it in a safe place. But you can really start to get a feel for what's going on, because understanding how it should feel properly, and without having to aim or worrying about picking that spot and just going through that motion, it sounds like is sort of the foundation that you start with, and then you go from there. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I don't worry about shooting distance until you get everything
I gotcha.
covered. I mean, I won't even worry about setting a peep on an individual. If I see they have, bad target panic or whatever, it's not that I won't do it, but the thing is I want to do them a favor. I want to slow them down, and I don't want to create bad habits. I want to help you control habits and get it where you're comfortable. And then, you go in steps, then you go to the next step. And once you can manage, aiming and squeezing properly, then you can worry about picking yardage, and then you can worry about going, once you have the confidence built, you can worry about stepping back farther and, really shooting and hunting in your skills. And then there's a whole other thing, controlled breathing and different things that'll help you, downrange accuracy too. So, but you got to start with the basics. And I'll tell you, man, I've seen a lot of people that just kills them. It's hard enough, especially where I came from in Indiana. It's a lot of pressure, if you get a nice mature buck in front of you, you might see one mature buck all season. If you get that opportunity, you don't want to screw it up. So, it's important to do everything you can to try to help yourself there. And it's so sad that, unfortunately, I'd hate how many bow hunters out there really have a problem with this, but don't understand what they have or what they're dealing with, and not sure how to get the help. And I'll tell you, that's where reaching out to coaches, just doing some of the things I'm talking about, relaxing your mind, man, it'll help you become a better bow hunter.
Nice. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's definitely stuff that we all need to be thinking about before we climb up in a tree here in the next 60 days or 45 days or however many days. Another topic that I'm kind of curious about and that I'm probably horrible about is what would you tell someone? And again, this is super boring, but it's something that I think needs to be talked about. What's the proper way to transport and store your bow?
Well, I think I said earlier that you want to keep your bow in a cool, dry place. So not in a car, nothing that's going to get super hot or something that's super humid. A bow case is fine. Matter of fact, a lot of people do that. Just if you have, if you get it wet or get it moist, because I've had a lot of customers that, would bring their bow in for the first time for the year to get it looked at. And we open the case and it's got surface rust all over the bolts. And it's because they didn't take the time to wipe it down before they put it in there. And then when you close it and you latch it up, then it traps the moisture in there. So it's going to oxidize the rust. A bow case is fine. Just make sure everything's, wiped down and make sure you store it in a cool, dry place. And, I don't know, there's probably different manufacturers that have different philosophies as far as, if you're going to turn your bow down or whatever. But to be honest with you, I think these bows anymore, the limbs and everything are so tough. I don't think you necessarily have to do that. But I would recommend, even if you keep the same bow year after year, at least change your strings out every couple of years and keep it waxed. And, if you keep them waxed, you change them out, you keep it in a cool, dry place and keep it put up so, kids and animals don't mess with them. I'd say you'd be in pretty good shape.
Okay, because I'm that guy that left it in my truck for most of the year. That was several years ago. Since then, I've taken better care of it. But well, anything else that you can think of that might be beneficial to our listeners in terms of preseason maintenance? And archery is about like rocket science. I mean, there's no end to all the different topics we could cover, arrows and etc. But we've only got a limited amount of time, and I definitely want to talk a little bit about a couple other things. But is there anything else that you'd like to talk about that you think might be beneficial to our listeners?
Probably when you've got everything else, let's say you do everything and you're mastered, or you feel like you've got everything under control as far as aiming and squeezing. The next thing is, relax and slow down. Don't get amped up. You don't have to shoot a ton of arrows, but you're better off to shoot, a few groups and make sure they're good shots instead of numbers of shots. And I try to tell people don't shoot more than a 3-shot practice group. For most people, unless you're professional and you do it all the time, 3 shots is about all you really need for a 3-shot group. Make sure they're all good and just relax, take your time and start up close. And once you're confident and comfortable, then you can move back and dial in your stuff. Mentioning it before, just making sure that if you don't do it, you go to someplace and before you even start, make sure the bows, the cams are in tune, you have it paper tuned so you know how it's shooting. Make sure all the bolts and everything are tight, snug. Make sure that your peep's adjusted correctly, and then just keep things tight and keep it waxed and enjoy shooting. And if you're having some issues, reach out to somebody for help. Don't be shy about it. And you may have to do some research because, unfortunately, bigger's not always better. And sometimes these big shops, some of them are good, but some of them are all about just getting you in, getting you out, and they don't go through a lot of the details. So, definitely do some research and pick a good one and go from there. Yeah,
I can definitely say that recently moved, which has been great, and I joined the local archery club in the area, and I went up there last Saturday and shot. You mentioned having fun doing it. It was so enjoyable to shoot at all the different 3D targets that they had. I think they had 24 or something like that set up, and it made it more fun than just shooting at a spot. So I think that's good advice to make sure you're having fun with it as well. Otherwise, it's going to be a job, and we all have jobs that we do every day. So we don't want to be doing that. We don't want to be doing that on our off time.
And here's another thing. When you go to do, a 3D shoot, a good tip with that is, and I just did it recently, is, especially starting out the year, don't worry about getting a scorecard and keeping score. Matter of fact, what I would recommend is take your rangefinder that you use and go out there and actually try to judge how far the animal is, just so you kind of get used to doing that. And then before you shoot, check it with your rangefinder. And then that'll help you with your yardage and kind of getting an idea, just in case you ever get caught where you can't judge or can't use your rangefinder on an animal. That'll help you. And, but yeah, 3D shooting is a great way to do it.
Cool. A couple of final questions regarding archery, and just your personal preference. Thumb release or a trigger style release with your index finger?
Well, so there's a lot of debate around that and certain things, but personally, it's easier for most people to use an index finger trigger style wrist strap release, and you can teach to squeeze with that. A lot of people that start looking for other avenues are having some of the issues that we were discussing earlier, which will actually make them try to go from, looking for other avenues. Now, that being said, there's another technique that can be taught. It's not something you just go grab it and pick it up and learn it. But there are some YouTube videos, I'm sure, some videos that you can purchase to learn how to do it. But it's easier for somebody to show you. But there's a way of, using true back tension. There's true back tension triggers, and basically you're using muscle and not a physical trigger to get it to activate. So it takes a little bit to learn how to do it, but it's another way of kind of helping eliminate that punching issue. Even I shot 3D and tournament archery for so long that, I still use a handheld release, and it has a thumb trigger on it, but I don't squeeze the thumb trigger. I use a back tension method of releasing it. That's hard to explain. It would be more if I need to kind of illustrate. I think it would be hard for me to project that over the radio, but yeah, there's no doubt. You could squeeze with a thumb, and that might help you if you're having issues, or maybe it just feels more comfortable. But I think the majority of my customers were index finger, and then if they wanted to learn back tension, we would help them with other avenues. But
well, I know what we're doing next year at our annual meeting.
Yeah. Hey, I'm all about it. I'm very passionate about it, and I'm sure that sometimes it's may talk in circles or whatever, but it means a lot to me because I've seen so many people that went from, they love it so much, but they just struggle, and they hate struggling because they're so passionate about hunting, but they're having a heck of a time, killing anything. And, when you can help that person and they turn around, it's unbelievable, and they're very thankful. And to me, that just means a lot. So, like I said, I'm very passionate about it.
Cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about Donnie Monroe. you have, let's back up. I met you when you signed up and made the investment to come down to our film school, or rather up to our film school in Illinois this year. And I think that it'd be fair to say that we quickly realized that there was a match there in terms of, the way you thought versus the way White Knuckle as a whole, what our mission was. And I think you were all about accomplishing the same thing. And what have you done in the past with respect to filming, and can you tell us a little bit about your experience in the past and what people can expect to maybe see in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I've always done I've never been really one to put a lot out there myself. I've done, quite a bit of self-filming and self-videoing, and just kind of kept everything to myself. Just for fun, I really enjoyed it. And, it puts a whole nother element, besides just, picking, a couple animals and trying to hunt them down for the year. When you can, film that and capture that moment, to me, it's a blast to go back and look at that, and there's some things where you can laugh about, or, some things that you can learn about what you did, and, it just helps capture memories, and it helps kind of also tell a story, and I've done some filming for a friend of mine that's on another show, Team 200. I've helped him some, Chris Seymour, and I just he has a blast with it, does a lot with it, and we've become really close friends, and been close friends for, I don't know, it's probably going on 14, 15 years now. But yeah, now I'm just kind of at a point where, I had an archery shop, plus I worked full time. So I videoed, but I didn't put extra effort as far as really going too far with it. And now I have one job, and I moved to Kansas from Indiana. So I'm really, really excited to capture a lot more, and tell more of a story. So I'm really excited to put that out there. And, I've kind of known about Todd for a while. I remember seeing some of the first White Knuckle stuff coming out, and I remember hearing it had to be on one of the videos. But he moved from Michigan and moved to Iowa, and obviously to get away from all the heavy pressure, and get out where he can chase some giants, and really that was kind of a dream of mine. I hunted pressured stuff for a long time. I mean, where we were at, to kill a 4-year-old buck was really, really doing something, and these guys that grew up in Kansas and Iowa, and, it's amazing. I wish I would have done it, but, they probably take a lot of that for granted, where, man, I sacrificed a lot to get here, moving my family and doing all this, and it's really taken a few years, but now we're here, we've purchased some land, and I'm just really excited. I can't wait to lay a lot down on video and share my story.
Yeah, it's definitely been a fun experience so far. I certainly like the stuff that you sent in terms of pictures. I get a kick out anytime I see a text message from you. I'm like, oh boy, what's this going to be? So it's been fun. For anybody, so with your experience with this whole process thus far, anybody who's getting into this, is there any tip that you have learned, or anything that you would say would be either a deterrent from doing it or an encouragement to do it?
What I would encourage those is, don't worry about trying to be somebody. Just enjoy yourself, have fun. And, if you really want to get into it, just, tell a story, put things together. And, the biggest thing is, enjoy yourself, enjoy others. And, if you want to shoot big deer, you might have to get yourself in a position to do that, whether it's relocate or leasing ground or whatever it is. And it's all about what your personal level is and what you want to achieve. But, and hard work, determination, don't give up, and whatever you want.
Exactly. Well, I don't think I could have said that any better myself. That is pretty much what Todd and I believe in, and that's just going out and having fun. And I think you hit the absolute nail on the head when you said, don't try and be somebody.
Yeah, and something else I'll tell you too, and a lot of my friends, especially close friends, will tell you, if I promote something and I push it and I talk about it, that's because I'm excited about it, because I personally, truly believe in it. That's another thing that helps me. I'm not all about just promoting something just to promote it. I've got to believe in it. I've got to want to do it. I've spent, even that having that shop, I would spend a lot of my personal money just testing equipment. Some of it we would get for free, but I was just that passionate about it. And even some of the guys in the industry, talking about different things, or some of the guys I was talking about earlier, that I just, they would tell you, if I'm not into it, I'll tell you, and I won't promote it. So that's just me. I mean, I'm as real as it gets on that. And I understand that you got to have things to pay the bills and especially on a show or whatever. But I guess that's another thing that really, that I liked about you guys. To me, that's very refreshing, because I've been around so many, whether it be going to the ATA show, and, I've seen so many different people that, they're just, I hate to say it, but they just seem fake. And I'm not about that. I'm about, I love whitetail deer. I love hunting. I love archery. I love to shoot. And I love to be around people that like to be that way. And and it excites me that you guys are very passionate about what you shoot and what you use. And so...
Yeah, that describes our mission statement, I would say, to a T. And that's, I learned from Todd a long time ago, and I learn it every day in dealing with the business side of the business, and that's that he nor I will promote something that we don't believe in, and there's tons of products out there, but you're never going to see us having 15, 20 sponsors, because that's just too much. And pretty soon you got a backpack full of, stuff that you're not using all the time. And it's just too much.
I think you even know, just from me talking to you and what short time that we've gotten to know each other is, there was an item that I wasn't too sure about. I never really tested or done anything. And, you guys were really passionate about it, and I won't spoil that. Now what it is, but and I went out and used it and videoed using it, and I was blown away of the results. So that's all I have to say.
I think everybody that has been around Todd can probably figure out what that is, but you'll definitely see it on a web show coming soon. So, well, Don, thanks a lot for taking the time tonight. Is there any closing remarks that you'd like to share with us?
Man, I just hope everybody goes and, these podcasts, I understand it takes a little bit of time, and they were new for me, but, when you're driving to work, driving from work, and you're by yourself, there's no better time than to play one of these and listen. And, he might know most of what's being talked about, but if you can pick up one or two things, or if it'll just make you think about your scenario and make you think about, maybe I ought to do this different. And that one thing might be all the difference in the world as far as what you lay your hands on this year. So I would encourage those to listen to the podcast and try to pick something out and be determined this year. Try to do the best you can, and I just really hope everybody takes that to heart and goes out and has the best year they've ever had.
Well, thanks again to Donnie Monroe for taking time to do an interview with us. And I think it's safe to say that we got lucky when Donnie decided to join our team. When he started, we didn't have any idea that he had owned a pro shop in the past, and how much passion he has for helping people to learn how to shoot better. So definitely a breath of fresh air for us, and I think you all will enjoy watching his season unfold this fall. So watch for those in our web episodes to come. That's about all I've got for this week. I don't know what we have in store for next week. It'll be a surprise for all of us, but I hope you enjoyed the episode that we put on this week. It was definitely an educational one, and definitely one that needs to be talked about more often. So good luck to all of you as you get ready for the upcoming season. It's about 30 days away here in Wisconsin, so I'm definitely getting jacked up to get going. If you have any ideas for a show that you'd like to see, please don't hesitate to either email me at jason@whiteknuckleproductions.com or go ahead and just put a post on our Facebook page and we will respond to you. I think you're going to be excited about the stuff that we have coming up during the hunting season. We've got some really, really fun episodes and some really, really educational episodes. With that, I'll close out the show for the week. Before I do that, though, I just want to remind everyone, if you would do us a favor and please give us a review on iTunes or on Stitcher, whatever the case may be. If you're unaware of how to do that, just go ahead and log into the iTunes or Stitcher app that you have and go to the section where you can do reviews, and obviously you do a review there. If you don't know how to download the episodes for iPhone, iPad, iPod listeners, grab your device and go to the iTunes store and search for the White Knuckle Podcast. This will help you to download the podcast app that's produced by Apple, and you can subscribe to the show from within that app. And every time I produce an episode, you'll get it downloaded to your device. For Android listeners, download the Stitcher app. That is also free, and search for the White Knuckle Podcast, and do the same thing on the Stitcher app as you would do on the iTunes app. So with that, I just want to remind everyone that as a loyal listener to the White Knuckle Podcast, you're entitled to a discount if you purchase anything from Ozonics that totals $3.99 or more. All you have to do is first sign up for an account before you check out. Once you've done that, go ahead and put in the code WKP2017. That's WKP 2017, and you will receive 15% off of your Ozonics order of $3.99 or more. I also want to remind you that on our White Knuckle webpage, that's www.whiteknuckleproductions.com, go to the shop and we have all our wearables there. I'd encourage you to check that out as well. Well, I think that's about all I've got for today. I just want to say have a great rest of your day and week, and Jason out.